Well, hi, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me in my shop here. It's August 23rd, a cool but warmer day outside. Lots of sunshine. It's been fantastic weather. In fact, these last couple of days here, wonderful. Now, what about this guy? So I was looking at two problems with it in the last video, and one was contacts here, which I know aren't 100%, and we could see why when we look closely at the contacts. I don't have any particular solution or thing I can do to fix it, so I think this is just a matter of shuffling it in there till it works at this point. Tuning dial, I'm a little worried about this. What's going on here is there's play in the dial. I don't know where the play is happening. It appears to be happening in the mechanism back here. Could it be just the result of not enough lubrication in here, and so this has to push hard to make that move? I don't think that's what we're looking at here. There's something here that's got this much play, and it's real play in it. In other words, you got to move here, turn that way, then you got to go all the way maybe to about here before you can move it the other way. So it's kind of obvious that this top piece could come off here, and if it came off, you'd have exposure to the gears that are inside. You can make observations or even do something about the problem. Don't know what you do if it's all gear driven. The only thing I can come up with is, as I was explaining, there is a system in here, and I don't know what it is exactly, but there's a system in here, an anti-backlash, to stop this. And probably that, I'm going to guess, there's a lubrication issue, and whatever it is, it's stuck, and so it's lost its ability. So getting in here would let me see that and work on it, lubricate it, clean it, whatever it might be. So getting this off would be great. So I did the research, looked here and there, tried to find something that would tell me how to get this off. And one picture I saw, there were 4 locking screws down in the corners here. I looked at that, wow, how come I didn't see that? That's easy. But in fact, this one's different. There is no screw down here to loosen off. What there is a screw back here where my finger is, but it appears to be going into the metal below here. Could still be getting this. I don't know what they've done with this thing in terms of shape inside and how screws might enter it in that. The screw back here, but there's another screw in the front here, and it looks to me like it would be virtually impossible to do anything to it. I have to get a wrench in here somehow. That just doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense to me. This would be one of the main areas that requires occasional maintenance and inspection, and you'd think they would arrange this like the photograph I saw, so it would come off real easy. You could look inside and do the maintenance. They wouldn't build this, so there's one screw at the front which requires removal of the panel, removal of the whole mechanism here. I can't imagine that, but that appears to be the way it is. Now I don't know what's behind this dial. For all I know, there's a porthole right here, so your screwdriver can go in and loosen that screw off. Don't know if that's the case. I see this knob is held on by a screw down here, but again, I have not read enough about this or seen enough information about this knob to know for sure that just taking this screw will slide the knob off, and that's all that'll happen, because of my lack of experience here. And bearing in mind that you who are watching this, you may have a ton of experience, and so you know exactly how to approach this, but I don't yet. I'd be worried, loosen this screw, pull this thing, and a pile of parts fall out from behind here. I don't know how this is built at all. So I don't want to find out the hard way. So I think what I have to assume is I don't know enough yet about how to approach this problem, and somewhere down the road something is going to show up, and I will then know what to do, or be in a better position to do whatever it is that has to be done, and then I can do it. For now, I'm going to leave this problem here. So the next thing I can do, and I'm trying to think of the least impactful things I can do on this radio. Everybody would tell you that electrolytic capacitors are the first to go. There are some in here. Let's take a look at that situation here. Oh, baby, it's a heavy, heavy radio. Well, there's this one. And there's another one just like it up here. Now, this doesn't have a filter, power supply filter, as far as I know. It doesn't attempt to filter the power supply. That's the job of the power supply itself. So where on this little diagram would you find a couple of electrolytic capacitors? This is a 10. I think that says 50 working volts. So that's very low. This one looks identical. So, 50 volts bypass on a cathode. Cathode bypass. So, for instance, here's a cathode resistor, and here's the bypass right there. And I certainly can't read this. I'll have to look at this on the computer screen. So, somewhere in here, though, are at least 2 capacitors. What's this up in here? That's just a clamp, a wire clamp. Is there any more? Does not appear to be the case. These are the only 2 I can find. This one and this one. These are metal housed ones. They look fine. The radio works. But they're electrolytic. And like I said at the start, anybody will tell you, electrolytic capacitors, not reliable. How is this held in here anyway? I mean, it's rigid as can be, but there's no clamp across it. I see some kind of bracket thing down there. I don't even know how this is held in. If you don't have to remove the original parts in many cases, there's a lot of space here. So I could leave the original there and put a new part around it. So that's got to be the positive terminal. Where's the negative? Where's that negative? Let's get the other camera going here. Now the autofocus is on, so there you can see the clamp, or the screw for the clamp. I think the autofocus is on. Sometimes it won't focus unless there's enough light. There it goes. Oh, that's an interesting view of the tube pins. They come right through the bottom. A very thin tube socket. Huh. Well, there's some writing on it. 66. 66. 6C6. Oh, don't get that wrong. 6C6. Okay. Oh, and then it's got these lousy wafer. I'm surprised. Lousy wafer styled. Hold on. Autofocus. Give it a chance, Jim. Wow, those pins really come through. Okay, so here's the capacitor at 10 microfarads, 50 working volts. Cornell Dublier. That, I think, is very unusual looking. Oh, that's a locking thing underneath it there. I think that's the bracket that's fixed to this capacitor. Oh, that's a rivet. So, would they have riveted a metal strip that's fused to the can of this capacitor? That looks like a rivet too. That looks like a rivet with a... No, they wouldn't do that, would they? I'm sure it's a nut. Well, that's an odd situation. So you would, what, undo this nut and the capacitor falls out? Ooh, is there some debris coming out of this capacitor? Yeah, it looks like a little bit of formation of some yellow material there. Be an easy thing to put another capacitor in, nip this just cut this right off and attach the capacitor to the free end of it. And then find a ground terminal. Well, looks like there's one right there. Yeah, one right under the rivet. So there's a ground terminal handy. Now let's look at the other one. The other one's a little bit harder to get at here. Look like this green wire is on it. And do we see that same bracket arrangement under here? Oh, yeah, you'd swear I'm looking at the same capacitor, but I'm not. So two of them, and is this also a 50? 10, 50 volts, that's the same. So look for these, I'm going to look for these on the schematic here. But I bet you because of the low voltage, they're almost certainly bypass capacitors. Okay, let me find it on the schematic. Okay, so I found the two capacitors here. One of them's right here, 10 microfarads, and it is a bypass on the 500 ohm cathode resistor here. No surprise. So that's why it's 50 volts. Why it has a 50 volt rating. The other one is here. Now this guy's doing something different, and I'm not sure I can necessarily explain it in any kind of reasonable way, but it's putting a solid ground to here, from here to here. A big capacitor that would be on here also. So I don't know what this one's doing exactly, but there it is. Anyway, so what is it across? It's really not across anything, is it? Well, look at that. There's the cathode. Huh. So it's right on the cathode connection here, and but there's no cathode resistor or anything like that. I think the biasing of this is done in a very different way. So I think it self biases the triode. Actually, it's not even a triode. It's a what is that? A pentode? So I'm just giving some time here for my brain to tell me something that I need to know that I don't realize yet. But I don't think there's anything. This is very straightforward. I can check this resistor at the same time if I can find it. I should be able to find it. Make sure it's 500. And this guy. Without knowing what he's doing, I think it's fine to replace it with, like for like. Are these capacitors, are they in need of replacement? I got a radio in front of me here. Here, let me flip back to the camera. So this radio, as far as I know, is all original. I don't know that anything has been done anywhere. Let's just look at that for a moment. Is there anywhere in here? Because if that's the case, and the radio works, and it works well enough, then it would not be a mistake for me to start, changing parts and destroy the fact. I mean, how many of these are there that are in original condition? Probably none, would be my guess. Now, is this really original condition, or, for instance, are all these replacements that have been done a long time ago? Maybe replacing paper capacitors. I don't think so. It just doesn't. It just looks like a factory job here. And if the bypass capacitors have not been changed, whichever one it is, I mean that's a very, very common target for a repair person. This looks a little funny, this solder job here. well, is there a remote chance that the Canadian military, when they were doing this, when they were installing this, fooling around with the audio transformer, that they went ahead and changed these? I can't imagine that. They would have made these alterations when the radio was new. The radio would have come from the factory, arrived here in Canada, and then they would have gone into the, I can't remember what it was called now, the establishment. Go to the establishment, and there they would make these changes that we see up here. They would not be interested in doing anything down here. That's why they bought it already built, so they don't have to do anything. So, no, I think the alterations would have been additions, like we see, and nothing more than that. They did all these things here, but and it's a fair bit of work figuring out how to get a transformer in there. Now they could also have requested the factory to make these changes. This is quite nicely done. This is on the front panel, but how does that get onto the front panel? Same as all the other lettering. It's done in the factory. Done in the factory. So perhaps what happened was one of these or a couple of these came up. The Canadian Army messed around with it and then specified this. Now the Hammond transformer, for some reason they don't just say output transformer, they say Hammond output transformer. Hammond is a transformer manufacturer here in Ontario. It has a long history, and Hammond transformers are all over the place. That's here in Canada. So if this was altered back in the States on the orders or the request of the Canadian Army, then the output transformer that went in, well, it could have been made by Hammond. They could have ordered it from Canada. It's quite possible. But it's more likely it was built somewhere in the States, and they wouldn't call it by its manufacturer's name. They just say there's an output transformer. So that suggests the alterations were done here in Canada. Now, how many of these got altered? So I've seen photographs of what I think are two different ones from this. So this one and the two photographs makes three of them with this arrangement. I haven't seen any with the words embossed right on the top. I haven't seen it, and no photo of that. So, they may have prototyped one or two and then kind of manufactured the rest this way. Because the photo I saw, these words are on little plates that have been screwed on. And that was true here too, and all over the place. They had these plates screwed on. Well, what's a decision, Jim? I think I have to somehow assess these guys. I think if I could maintain this all original as it is now, I mean, am I the guy who's going to ruin it? On a working radio, the radio appears to work. So what if the bypass capacitor is a little weak? I think it would just be reduced output, I think, is really the end result of that. So if there's no capacitor here, no bypass capacitor, then the grid signal is working through this resistor, because the grid signal is really applied from grid to cathode, and in there is the biasing resistor. So yeah, without this capacitor, yeah, you'd have less input signal on the tube itself. Some of it would be dropping on this resistor. You put the capacitor in, and now it's grid to cathode signal wise. So if this gets weaker and weaker, the output gets lower and lower. Some tone changes maybe. What if it was a short? Well, if it was a short, was shorted, we'd have really bad biasing of this tube and terrible distortion, I think. We didn't hear that. It sounded pretty good, actually, what I was listening to. Good question is, where did they install this output transformer? Do you think they want the power, so they'd install it after the output tube? But are they driving headphones out of the front of the radio here? Normally you're just driving headphones. You don't need a lot of power. So I don't even know where they've put this output transformer for sure. Like for instance, the headphones here are connecting to the output of this tube, and this one's being ignored if you're using headphones on this diagram. Be an easy thing to kind of find out. You pull this output tube out, run the radio, and see if there's still audio on the front. Then we'd know it's coming from back in this area. So we can figure that out if necessary. Oh my gosh. Oh man. Yeah, I gotta stop. I'm not gonna jump into this. I think it's a mistake. I really think I'm looking at an all original radio here. Perhaps the only one. I don't know. I mean, there could be the only one with this alteration done to it. The only Canadian military version of this radio that is still all original and works. Seems to work. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to leave it just like this. And today I got a late start, so I'm going to cut this video at this point. And I'm going to think about this. I don't want to be the guy who basically, you know, change one part and then that status is gone. Oh boy, such decisions. Well, thanks a lot for watching this, even though I didn't do a darn thing. And I'd be interested in what people have to say about this. So comment away, and I will read the comments on this. At this point, I'm usually doing things based on an indication of their need, and there isn't much indication here of needing anything really. It's stunning to me. 1939, 1940. Plug it in and away it goes. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you on the next video.